Late one night, in the small, isolated town of Pine Ridge, a train whistle echoed through the darkness. This was no ordinary train. It was the midnight train, a spectral locomotive that appeared only on the coldest, foggiest nights. The townsfolk avoided it at all costs, for those who boarded the midnight train were never seen again. Emma had heard the stories all her life. Her grandmother used to say that the train was cursed, a vessel for lost souls seeking redemption. Emma, a skeptic by nature and a budding journalist, decided to uncover the truth. Armed with her camera and a notebook, she waited by the abandoned train station on the outskirts of town, determined to catch a glimpse of the mysterious train. The night was cold, and a dense fog hung in the air, muffling the sounds of the night. Emma shivered, partly from the chill and partly from the anticipation. Just as she was beginning to doubt the train's existence, she heard it, a distant whistle, growing louder and more distinct. A cold wind swept through the station as the midnight train emerged from the fog. Its once gleaming carriages were now rusted and covered in grime, and the windows were opaque with age. The train came to a halt with a screech, and the doors slid open with an eerie, creaking sound. Against her better judgment, Emma stepped forward and boarded the train. The interior was dimly lit by flickering, old-fashioned lanterns. The air was thick with dust, and the seats were covered in tattered upholstery. As she moved through the carriages, she noticed that each one was empty, save for a few scattered belongings: a child's doll, an old suitcase, a hat left on a seat. It was as if the passengers had vanished into thin air. Suddenly, the train lurched forward, and Emma stumbled into a seat. The doors closed with a finality that sent a shiver down her spine. The doors closed with a finality that sent a shiver down her spine. The train picked up speed, the rhythmic clattering of the tracks echoing in the silence. Emma looked out the window, but the fog was so thick she couldn't see anything beyond a few feet. As the train sped through the night, Emma felt a growing sense of unease. She decided to explore further, hoping to find some clue to the train's origins. She made her way to the front of the train, where she found a door marked "Conductor." Gathering her courage, she knocked, but there was no answer. She slowly opened the door and stepped inside. The conductor's cabin was even darker than the rest of the train. An old, withered man sat at the controls, his back to her. He was dressed in an outdated uniform, and his hands were gripping the controls tightly. "Excuse me," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. "Can you tell me where this train is headed?" The conductor didn't turn around. "This train," he said in a low, gravelly voice, "is headed to a place where time stands still. A place where the lost are found and the found are lost." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. "What do you mean? Who are you?" The conductor slowly turned to face her, and Emma gasped. His eyes were hollow, his face gaunt and ghostly. "I am the keeper of the midnight train," he said. "And you, young lady, have boarded a journey of no return." Panic surged through Emma. She turned and fled the cabin, running back through the carriages. But no matter how far she ran, the train seemed endless. Desperation set in, and she screamed for help, but her cries were swallowed by the fog and the relentless clatter of the train. In her frantic search for an escape, Emma stumbled into a compartment she hadn't seen before. Inside, she found a group of people, their faces pale and eyes vacant. They looked at her with a mixture of pity and sorrow. "You're one of us now," an elderly woman said softly. "We all boarded this train seeking something, and now we are bound to it forever." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "No, there must be a way out." A young boy stepped forward, holding a small silver key. "There is one way," he whispered. "The key to freedom lies in facing your deepest fear." With trembling hands, Emma took the key and turned to leave the compartment. As she walked back through the train, she noticed that the fog outside had cleared slightly, revealing glimpses of a desolate, otherworldly landscape. She made her way back to the conductor's cabin and inserted the key into a small, hidden lock on the control panel. The train shuddered, and the conductor let out a low, mournful wail. The scenery outside began to change, shifting from desolation to a familiar countryside. As the train slowed to a stop, Emma found herself back at the Pine Ridge station. She stepped off the train, her legs weak with relief. The midnight train disappeared into the fog, its whistle echoing one last time. Emma returned to her life, forever changed by her journey. She wrote her story, warning others of the midnight train, hoping to prevent anyone else from making the same mistake. But every now and then on foggy nights, she could still hear the faint whistle of the train, reminding her of the souls still trapped within its ghostly carriages.